Hi everyone, welcome to the next part of this page from Autumn Harvest by Teresa Goodridge. Now we are going to just start with what I think are a couple of quick, easy-ish areas. We're going to do the grass and we're going to do the sky. You might not think they're quick and easy, but I have a quick technique. We're going to use the grass green for the grass, and I'm just going to do it quite quickly and lightly. I don't really want it to be that dark, so I'm not worried about just putting quite a light layer on here. And I'm just going, I find that if you've got a reasonably blunt pencil and you move quite quickly along the page, you can get a fairly even effect without too much hard work. I think I did this in a video, in a planner video quite recently, the underwater one, actually not that recently, back in August, and some people struggle with it a little bit, but it just takes a bit of practice. You need, as I say, a blunt pencil is much easier, because then you don't get so many lines and so much difference in colour across it. Oh, I think I'm going to go up to there, but I think actually that might be the end of the grass there, and this might be sky after here. You can sort of choose where it starts and ends, I think, really. Now you can do it darker than this if you wish, with a bit more intensity, but I feel that's fine. Now I'm looking at this one for the sky, and there's some gaps in here that we'll have to work around as well. We can get there. I'm going to use a light sky blue. This is the sky blue, and just start here. Now with sky blue, it's better to actually, with sky, sorry, it's better to go in a horizontal direction if you can, which I'm not doing because I don't want to turn my book round for you so you can see what I'm doing better. But I'm looking for gaps here. Yeah, it's better to do it the other way. This way you can end up looking like it's raining because of the sort of streakiness of the blue, but it's quite pale, so I'm hoping it won't look like that. I'm liking the fact that we've got a little frame around. Tend to get that in some of Teresa's, I think most of her pages. It means you can, you know, use something to make it stand out a little bit. Maybe a gold or a silver, black, those sorts of colours I always like for frames. Again, like the green, having a blunter pencil is better. There we go. Now we've got to look in here. Oh, I don't know if that's pumpkin. I think that is sky, and that somehow. I think that's a petal, that's the pumpkin, that's sky there. Yeah, and in there. I think so. Not sure what that bit is in there. Not sure, but I'm going to make that do for now. Okay, now we're going to come down here and we're going to come in closer. Now I think the easiest bit of this page are these. We're going to do them first. Nice bright sort of yellowy colour like corn. dark Naples ochre. I'm going to sharpen it. I'm just going to do those, although our sunflowers, they're not going to be this sort of colour. So I'm trying to make them a little bit darker near the centre, but they're quite small little bits, so do the best you can. I was thinking with school's back now, September, you know, Harvest Festival isn't far away. I don't know whether it's celebrated on a particular day, but I know that my children's primary always used to do one. It was really nice. They used to bring food in, which would be, we always asked for tins, and it would be sent to the food bank. And when I was at school, the food used to go to deserving old people in the community. So my gran used to sometimes get some delivered to her house. I don't know how people knew where she lived. Might have been through the church or the luncheon club she went to, something like that, I guess. And she used to really like that. Because she did actually, you know, she was a pensioner. She just got a small amount of pension. She wasn't on a full pension. Her husband didn't really have a pension either. So she had nothing of his to draw, really. And so she used to have income support and things like that. She didn't spend loads of money. She used to buy second-hand clothes at jumble sales and things like that. And she was always fine. She managed. She never complained. She was used to it, I think. When she married her husband because she thought he was rich. She told me this funny story. She said he had really clean fingernails, and so she thought that meant he was rich. And I assume that's because if you do manual labour, you're going to get dirtier fingernails than if you sit in office. But unfortunately, he was crippled with arthritis when the children were quite young, and so she had to be the main breadwinner, and she couldn't work full time because she had to look after everybody. So they were never very well off in the end. Luckily they had a council house, meaning that the rent was very low, and in fact I don't think she had to pay much rent, if any, especially as she got older. Councils used to have housing where families or anyone really who needed extra help could get cheaper housing. We're going to do the pumpkins next. I quite like starting the pumpkin with the terracotta, so that's where I'm going to go. We're going to do both at once, so I'm going to start with the darker areas of this one. Yes, and there are still council houses now, but not as many as they were. And there's a lot of waiting lists and things. It's quite hard to find them and that sort of thing. But there's still help, but it's not, as I say, it's not as good as it was. But I think that's the case with most things, isn't it? And I don't know whether it is really worse than it was, or whether we look back with rose-tinted spectacles. You know, I don't really know. I have no knowledge of such things, so I don't know. I need to hear what other people say. So, who knows? But I know that she managed to get a house which was good. And so my dad and my mum actually both born in council houses, which, you know, some people frowned upon. You know, it's not the thing, it's not nice, you know. I think my dad always has a bit of a complex about that, I don't know, but he worked hard so that he could own his own house, and so I think he should be proud of himself and think how far he's come rather than feeling a bit embarrassed, you know. And we're lucky enough to own our own house too. I feel very fortunate. I've grabbed the cadmium orange. I know, I think interestingly, I always look at watch American sort of sitcoms and things, and no one seems to own their own house or apartment. Everyone seems to rent. I don't know why that is. Whereas here, people aspire to own. Most people own, they don't rent. Well, that's probably not true. Quite, you know, young people rent, and people who have never had enough money to own. You know, my gran, you know, she never owned a house. She lived in a council house her whole life. And my grandfather too. But it's just the way they were. I mean, as I told my gran's story, my grandfather's equally tricky, where he always did, he was a coal miner for a while. I don't know where. There was no coal mines near where he lived, so I'm not sure where. Maybe he travelled away to do it. I don't know what other jobs he did. He ended up working for quite a big company near where he lived. I don't know, he must have gone to work on the bus, because they weren't in the town he lived. And I've got absolutely no idea what he did there. No idea at all. But he wasn't terribly well paid. And he had the huge family. And this is the dark chrome yellow. We're going to finish it off. So no, not terribly well paid, with 12 children, no wife. I mean, he did have a wife, but you know, she didn't survive. So yeah, lots of responsibility and not a lot of money, but they all managed. And yeah, he never seemed embarrassed about living in a council house either. He paid his rent out of his pension. When I knew him, he was a pensioner. When I remember him, I went to his retirement party apparently when I was a toddler, so you know, I don't really remember. So yes, he always paid his rent on time. As far as I remember, the rent man coming around when I was there. And think of that, they used to come around and collect the rent, and then eventually they used to have to go and pay it in town into the council offices, and that used to be fun. I used to love doing that. I used to go with my aunt, go and pay the rent, and I don't know why I like doing it. I can't really remember. I think that the offices you went to just seemed very formal and they were dark, not dark, really dark, but it was a dark building, and it just felt important, I think. You know, it was just different, because we never had to do that with my parents because they had a mortgage, so they would pay that. Right, the tops of the pumpkins. Now, I so often do them the same colour, but I really like doing them this colour. I'm going to go for it, earth green yellowish. So, yeah, I think there are people who, I think it's very interesting actually, the mindfulness. It teaches you to how, if you want more than you've got, it can create disharmony in your mind and body. And I find that quite interesting, that if you'll keep concentrating hard on what you want and how different you want to be, you're not happy. Whereas if you just there's a bit in the meditation where you just think, I'm complete and whole just as I am. You know, like, do I really need more? That sort of thing. It's quite difficult to explain and actually to understand. There's not saying you can't have more, you can't have ambition, but you just need to be very aware of the impact that might be having on you. and I found that quite interesting. This is dark cadmium yellow, and we're going to do the base of our sunflower leaves with this and sort of just fade it up and just putting it darker in the centre and fading it up each petal. But it is, I think, having gratitude is important. You know, I sometimes think, oh, I wish I had a little colouring studio, a room to myself to put my staff, that sort of thing, you know. But doesn't mean I'm not grateful for what I've got. You know, some people have only got one room to live in. There's no way they could make videos, you know, or they couldn't afford a colouring book and some pencils. You know, I know people have to save really, really hard just to buy the cheapest of books and pencils, or they have to wait to be gifted them for Christmas or things like that. So I'm incredibly lucky, and I realise that, and I need to remind myself of that, you know, not having a colouring studio is not the end of the world. At least I can colour, you know. So that's there's something, yeah, I think there's some value in that. Gratitude. I know I used to follow, I still do actually, follow a Dr. Rupi on Instagram, and he is a doctor who does cooking. He realises he had health issues as a young doctor, and his mother reminded him, I think that's there, isn't it? That he had been abandoning his diet, and she gave him some advice as to what he should be doing, and he changed it up, and he was much better. And he therefore provides healthy recipes and things, but also as a podcaster and has an app and all this sort of thing. Cadmium yellow. And I'm going to put a bit more of this down. I want that brightness. And he went through a phase of posting 3 things he was grateful for every day on his Instagram. And then he stopped posting it, but he said he was still doing it. He just was wanting to enforce the habit. And if you're doing it publicly, then it sort of gives you accountability, doesn't it? But I think gratitude is important. And I think there's always something, even if we're going through a very tricky time, there's always something. You've got good food, or some food, or you've got water, clean water, house, shelter, clothing. You know, there's usually something. Family, friends, colouring book, you know, whatever it is, there's usually something that you can draw into a gratitude. And I think that helps you to appreciate what you've got. I think it can also help with the desire to have more. If you feel grateful for what you've got, it helps you remember what you've got. I was watching this reel just before I came in here, and it was about decluttering, and it was saying that your clutter is a sign of all that money that you've wasted on things. I was like, ooh, that feels so harsh to say that to somebody who's decluttering. Here's all the money you wasted. But also, I think sometimes seeing it in those terms makes it harder to get rid of it, because you think, well, I need to then make use of it. I think we have to think about the pleasure that we got from the item when we first bought it. So it might have the pleasure, not just of maybe we didn't use it, but the pleasure of opening that packet, receiving that item, like chrome yellow. I'm going to finish them off now. You know, getting that parcel through the post, that little buzz of receiving it, that would have given us some pleasure. And but I think, you know, it is worth thinking about how much things cost, and if you're using everything that you've got, you know. It's what I've been doing with my decluttering. I haven't done any lately, but I want to do some more. But I've got a little bit distracted with other things. I just don't know what's going on here. That's probably the base of the pumpkin. So I'm just going to get my cadmium orange and just colour that bit in orange. And that is too. But what is that? Oh, that's this bit of pumpkin. That's it. There we go. Cracked it. Good. That was worrying me. I was like, what on earth is that? I don't know what to do. But I think also, like, my husband loves being surrounded by stuff. So for him, clutter isn't clutter, it's things. Whereas for me, I don't. So for me, it feels like there's too much stuff. But I'm getting somewhere. I feel like I have cleared the surface stuff, if that makes sense, and I can dig deeper into other things that maybe I ignored when I was decluttering before, or something like that. We'll see. See what happens. There are certain things, I mean, we have room. Well, or do we? The things that take up the most room are the big things, and they're the things that we don't get rid of. So it's quite tricky. But never mind. We will. I will persevere and see how clear I can get things. And then Christmas will come along and I'll get a load more stuff. No, I don't tend to. My parents always ask me what I want, so I direct them to something that I want or need or whatever. So that's useful. I actually want some chopping boards. Mine are all falling apart, so I'll be replacing something rather than adding to things, if you know what I mean. Although the chopping boards I want are really expensive. So I want wooden. I want to go back to wood. I've never really used wood for chopping on, because I've always thought you get the grooves in the wood and it's not good. But I've realised from things that I've been watching lately that wood is the healthier way to be, bistre, than to use plastic, which is what I've been using, which can put microplastics into your food. Hadn't really thought about it in that way before. So I'm going to get rid of my plastic and replace them with wood. So that's my plan. So I thought that'd be a good Christmas idea. My mum likes buying me things for the house. She doesn't like buying me colouring things, really. She doesn't, because she doesn't like colouring, she doesn't understand my obsession with it. So, and it is an obsession. And so she doesn't like necessarily buying me stuff. And she also thinks it's all really expensive. She's probably right. But now this is chromium green. Hang on, am I reading that right? Yes, opaque. Chromium green opaque for this stem here. Now I've realised that I've missed a bit of an end of a leaf there. So I'm going to get my light chrome yellow and just finish this one. There, and this bit too. I feel like we're a bit pale on this particular flower. I'm just going to layer it up a bit. I might add a bit to the pumpkins as well. They seem a bit dull. I just find yellow so hard. I probably miss so many bits of yellow and I just can't see. Can't see yellow. Well, it's not the yellow that I can't see, it's the white bits that I've missed that I struggle to see. Okay, so let's do a little bit more on the pumpkin. I'm going back to my cadmium orange. I'm just going to layer it up a little bit more so that we've got a little bit more vibrancy. That's better. Do the other side as well. Now if you want to, you can do these white bits in a white pen, so you sort of eliminate that black line that's around them. And don't think I'm going to worry about that, it's just something that came into my mind. This seems to be floating with sky underneath, a bit confused. Anyway, maybe I've done that a bit wrong. Now, just having a look, I think I might be done. Let's take this piece of paper. Oh, we've got the edge to do. I'm not done. Got this outside. Hang on, put that back in. So I'm going to grab a gold pen. One of my Jelly Roll metallics. I think this one, although there's not much of that one left, but maybe it's a sort of brownie, more brownie colour, which I think will work well. Just looks quite brown to me from here, but I'm sure it will shine when I tip it to the light. You can use any sort of colour. You might prefer to use a more conventional gold. I just thought this will be a little bit different. It's a bit more bronzy, I think, maybe. It's number 554. Sorry, I should have said that. 554. But yeah, you can use, you may have a different gold pen you want to use. There's a lot of gold pens about, isn't there? But as with all pen, start at the top, work down. Don't try not to smudge what you've done already. And I'm going left to right. If you're left-handed, you might go right to left. I've gone out of the lines. Don't do that unless you want to. I obviously wanted to, that's why I did it. All the way down. Yeah, my son was actually up early this morning for his driving lesson. My other son was at work, so busy. So I'm actually home alone at the moment. It's I used to really appreciate being home alone, but actually, although I don't dislike it, I don't feel like I need it so much now, because my husband and my son are at work 3 days a week. My other son is in his bedroom most of the day, and so I get a lot of time to myself now, and that's nice. I need that time, peaceful time. It's always very noisy. Husband's very noisy. I think it might be to do with his ADHD, but not only does he have something on, a film or music or whatever, he's also very loud when he talks, and he mutters and mumbles and things like that as well. So it can be quite loud in the house. So I sometimes just need a bit of peaceful time. You know, I like silence, but he hates it, so we're very different. But apparently it's very common for people with ADHD to want something playing in the background all the time. But I also think it's something that young people need. They seem to be very used to having music or films or something like that playing. Right. There we go. So, whoops. so you can see the shine, hopefully. Maybe not, but there is our completed picture. As I say, with Teresa Goodridge, I never feel like I need to do something really perfect and amazing because of her loose style. It feels like it gives me a license to do something loose, and I find that really fun and liberating. So that's how I've done that one. So I hope you've liked that one. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have a really lovely day and happy colouring.